Morning. I'm Kyle Hernandez of the UWM Alumni Association. Welcome to our mobile master chat. We are thrilled to have alumni from across the country with us today to hear from Sheri Williams-Pannell, assistant professor and area head of the musical theater program at UWM's Peck School of the Arts. Professor Pannell is a graduate of Spelman College and holds an MFA from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Sheri Williams-Pannell is a native Milwaukeean who has performed, directed, or written for a number of Milwaukee's theater and arts organizations, including Bronzeville Arts Ensemble, First Stage, Florentine Opera, Milwaukee Rep, Milwaukee Symphony Orchestra, and Skylight Music Theater, among many others. She has also worked at the Oregon Shakespeare Festival, Old Lyric Theater in Utah, Children's Theater of Madison, and is a founding member and artistic director at Bronzeville Arts Ensemble here in Milwaukee. In 2017, Professor Pannell was honored as an Artist of the Year by the City of Milwaukee. And in 2020, she served as one of the founders of the Milwaukee Black Theater Festival. Her play, Welcome to Bronzeville, was selected as the 2020 Best Original Script of the Decade by Broadway World Milwaukee. I will join you again at the end of the chat for questions. Feel free to add your questions into the chat as we go. But now I'll turn it over to Professor Pannell.
Good morning, Kyle. And I would like to thank both you and Abby Quinlan for producing today's show, and Anna Conant for the invitation to join you today. Before I begin the lecture, I would like to recognize that UWM resides on traditional Potawatomi, Ho-Chunk, and Menominee homelands along the southwest shores of Michigami, North America's largest system of freshwater lakes, where the Milwaukee, Menominee, and Kinnickinnic rivers meet, and the people of Wisconsin's sovereigns, Anishinaabe, Ho-Chunk, Menominee, Oneida, and Mohican nations remain to this day. I thank you again so much for this opportunity to explore with you, and I say with you, Theater for Justice and Social Change 2021, a tool for healing civilizations. Before we begin, I would like to just find out who is here with me. I'd like you to introduce yourself with just your name and share a play or musical that helped to shape or change your viewpoint on a social issue. Share a play or a musical that shaped or changed your viewpoint about a social issue. Just take a moment to think about it. And then if I could just have a few responses to get us started. And Abby, I'm not sure if I will be able to hear someone or if we'll see it in the chat, but I would love to connect in some way. Okay, is anyone ready to share?
Not yet.
Okay. So Abby, has anyone been able to join us yet? If not, I'll move forward then.
We have Janice Gerke from Madison, and her first thought was Hamilton, both the content and the production styling.
Excellent. Hamilton, in fact, has become a game changer. I can tell you, as the area head for musical theater at UWM Peck School of the Arts, there's been a resurgence in majoring in musical theater, in dance, in acting, and I think Lin-Manuel Miranda has a lot to do with that.
For sure. Leslie says Three Penny Opera.
Absolutely. There again, I'm set in the time in Germany during a time when people were being persecuted by the Nazi regime. So I can definitely see again how that powerful piece would impact, especially a young person seeing it for the first time.
Oh, so Joe brought Hamilton and In the Heights.
Oh, In the Heights.
Yes,
oh my
such
goodness.
a good one.
I thank you so much for both of those. And there we go again, Lin-Manuel. We're so grateful for the gift that he is presenting not only to us here in the States, but it's worldwide. This is a worldwide phenomenon that he is exploding. It's because of his creativity.
Yes. So
perhaps we have one more.
Jerry has an alum that is residing in San Francisco. He wrote Execution of Justice, read the trial of Dan White after assassination of Mayor Moscone and Harvey Milk.
Oh my goodness, yes. Not only the play, but the film, also the film. And I do remember, oh my goodness, yeah, the historical event. Yes, and the catalyst and the advocacy of Harvey Milk. And we should, that's a name we should not forget, and lives on through film and through plays. Absolutely.
And Barbara Sem says South Pacific, which we heard at the top of the program.
Barb Sem, my friend, I'm so glad you're tuning in. Yes. Absolutely, South Pacific. And in that song that we heard, you have to be carefully taught. As children, we watch the adults around us and we pick up those social cues and the attitudes and the behaviors. And in this one, carefully taught to hate people who are different, people who live differently, who love differently, right?
Right.
Exactly. Gwen Benner says, West Side Story comes to mind though decades old, and Cabaret too.
Well, it's interesting. It's decades old, but it's living again, being released this summer. And Rita Moreno, who we are honoring, it seems like all week long we've been hearing about her, and she has a new book, her memoir, and she's one of the producers, not only in the new film, the new production, which has been filmed, but she's one of the producers. So she is a powerful woman in theater and film, cinema arts, but also a role model. She is Latina role model for not only people of her ethnicity, but for young women and people, period, about strength and longevity. What it means to have a lasting staying power as a theater practitioner. Beautiful. All right. Thank you so much for your responses. Let's go to the next slide, please. So before we begin, I thought we would just spend a moment just agreeing upon these definitions of theater justice and social justice. And as you see, I've used varying sources for these definitions. So theater, the activity or profession of acting in, producing, directing, or writing plays. Theater, not the place, but the activity. Justice, the quality of being just, impartial, or fair, okay? And social change, and we're thinking about in sociology, the alteration of mechanisms within the social structure characterized by changes in cultural symbols, rules of behavior, social organizations, or value systems. And as we work through these theaters, these movements, these persons, you'll see how these definitions come into play. Theater for justice and social change. Thank you, Abby. This quote that I discussed with one of my colleagues, Raylene McMillian, has become central to me during this past year especially. It's from Toni Morrison, a quote from an essay that she wrote for The Nation on March 23rd. It was published 2015, where in the title of the essay was "No Place for Self-Pity, No Room for Fear. In times of dread, artists must never choose to remain silent." And this is the quote that you'll find at the bottom of my email signature, and that really, I believe I've been practicing most of my life as a theater professional. This is precisely the time when artists go to work. There is no time for despair, no place for self-pity, no need for silence, no room for fear. We speak, we write, we do language. This is how civilizations heal. And I might add, we speak, we write, we do language, we write plays, yes, we create dances, we create works of visual art, we sing, we do all of this in the attempt to heal our civilization. In this article, Toni Morrison mentions names like Paul Robeson, Primo Levi, Ai Weiwei, Oscar Wilde, Pablo Picasso, Wole Soyinka, Fyodor Dostoevsky, Alexander Solzhenitsyn, and Lillian Hellman. That's just a few of the names that she mentions. And a lot of these names are familiar to us by the great work they have done. Their history speaks for them. Enough time has passed. But there are some contemporary artists I think we need to include. And I'm going to say two of them are not contemporaries really, but their work still is recent enough. Stevie Wonder for his work in human rights as a recording artist. Of course, Lin-Manuel Miranda for his advocacy for Latinx theater and for human rights. Lena Horne, civil rights activist, and was also blacklisted for a while by Joe McCarthy and that whole time of communism scare, okay? Miriam Makeba for her human rights and her bold fight against apartheid and the cost, the great cost she paid for her activism. Common, yes, the hip hop artist, the rapper Common, for his work in social justice today and in the right of civil rights for people around the world. Alicia Keys for the rights of girls and women. Willie Nelson, farmers and environmentalists. Glenn Close for her advocacy for those with mental health challenges. And Prince, the late Prince, for his work in technical education for all children, equity in technical education. So these are just a few, and you probably in our chat can name some as well to add to this list of people who are artists, especially those in theater, who are advocates for the rights of others and environmental rights, which when we fight for the environment, we are fighting for others. We're fighting for our planet, for our right to continue to live and exist. Okay, thank you. Next slide, please. So what are some of the issues that theater in particular has responded to and how? Now just know what I'm giving you are just a sampling. This is just a sampling of the issues and of the ways theater has responded through productions. So war has always been with us, as long as there've been when humankind, people not being able to come to a compromise or agreement, right? There's war, or somebody wants something someone else has. It wants to take it and you have to defend it. Well, we can go all the way back to 411 BC was with Aristophanes and Lysistrata, where the women are responding to war in and the loss of their children, the loss of the people. And what they do in this Greek play is to withhold sex from the men, using their sexuality as a weapon for peace. We know today that rape is used and has been through the ages a weapon of warfare, but they use their abstinence as a weapon of peace in Lysistrata. In Hair, the book and lyrics by Jerome Ragnai and James Rado, with music by Galt McDermott, set in, it was produced in 1967. And Hair, they're again dealing with war. Why are we fighting this war, the Vietnam War? Very bold of them in the height of the Vietnam War to produce such a musical that really brings about the question why we fight. Why are we fighting? I can tell you as a young person, just listening to the album, and as we were listening to a selection from it today, it brought up all of those feelings. I remember watching television and seeing the body bags, the counts every week on the news. This is one of the first wars, I think, where nightly on the news, we were watching the death tolls, the Agent Orange, that beautiful young girl who was running down the road burning from napalm. So for these theater makers to respond with a musical that says, why? That asks the question, why? Why are we doing this? And the cost that is paid for questioning, for being a dissenter, okay? The draft dodger, burning the draft cards. So anyway, this musical, Hair, which, by the way, was produced at University of Wisconsin, Peck School of the Arts, as was Lysistrata. That photo is actually from the UWM production of Lysistrata. Okay, let's move forward, please. Thank you. Racism, prejudice. As long as there have been people who look differently, who sound different, who speak differently, who the customs and so on, there's going to be racism, prejudice, but then what do we do about it? How do we respond as theater practitioners? Well, one of the ways, as we spoke earlier, and Barb Sam, thank you so much for sharing South Pacific, which was composed by Rodgers and Hammerstein, with a book by Hammerstein and Logan in 1949, World War II. Setting this play in the South Pacific, really looking at, there again, who we fight, why we fight, who we love, why you don't like the fact that I love the way I do. And in this case, it was interracial love. Love across the cultures, across ethnic group, set in a different place in the world. And what happens when we return home with those we love who look differently from the rest of our family, okay? So there's a song that you heard earlier that we referred to. You have to be carefully taught to hate. So Oscar, this team of creators, theater creators, really took a risk, because before they're just writing this happy little song and dance, and here we're dealing with a serious social issue. but it was received. It became eventually a hit. But after people finished laughing, and there are moments to laugh and to dance, to have fun, but there are those moments where you have to think about who you are and how you relate to others around you, and even those who are not around you, but certainly live in your country, who are part of your society. A Raisin in the Sun. Lorraine Hansberry, 1959, started a movement with one piece. One play kind of turned the society, our American society, upside down. Why? Because it's being produced during the time of the civil rights struggle. It's being produced during the time of Jim Crow. It's being produced during a time when Black people are seeking justice, are seeking fair housing, are seeking to be looked at as human beings with a desire to live, to work, to enjoy a family, to be, to exist. Because there's a time of lynching, 1957, I think it was, the lynching of Emmett Till. So all of this is going on. And here she comes with a Broadway hit, A Raisin in the Sun, based upon her life experience in Chicago, area of Chicago. A Raisin in the Sun. And it launched the career of Sidney Poitier, Diana Sands, and Ruby Dee, Lou Gossett Jr. So here, this work for which she is honored and beginning to launch a wonderful career, which, as we all know, or most of us are aware, she did not live long enough to truly, I'm going to say, fulfill what was getting ready to do, be a brilliant career. But certainly this one play has become her legacy. And there's probably not been a year since it was produced on Broadway and then released into, I'll say, the mainstream theater, that it has not been produced somewhere or read in a classroom somewhere. So Lorraine Hansberry's A Raisin in the Sun. And then Vinette Carroll with Don't Bother Me, I Can't Cope, making strong political statements about what's happening right now. 1971, affirmative action and still no action forward for so many Black people. Don't bother me, I can't cope. Using poetry, using, I'm going to say, because of her gift of rhyme and prose, it can almost be looked at kind of like a precursor of hip hop. And what we look at today is contemporary theater expressions. But Vinette Carroll, who was a part of the Federal Theater, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. But this is a piece that is not performed as often anymore because a lot of the political statements that it makes are set in a different time, but it still has much to say. There is a song that says, it takes a whole lot of human feeling to be a human being. That is a song that I wish people still sang today, because it just speaks about how we judge others based upon what they look like, how they love, who they are, okay? But it's from Don't Bother Me, I Can't Cope. And then, well, just any play by August Wilson, any of those from the 20th century cycle of plays, which began in 1900 and take us all the way to 1990. Any of his plays, in which we are examining the human condition through the experience of African Americans. So, but his plays, the stories that are told touch and have a truth that transcend the Black American experience, okay? So racism and prejudice. Next, please. Oh yeah, misogyny. Women, the way we are treated, mistreated, viewed, held back, treated less than in pay, all of that. Well, there again, Oscar Rogers and Oscar Hammerstein and Richard Rogers, through Carousel, the musical Carousel. And I have to say that Rogers and Hammerstein really took the musical theater from a place of being joy, happy, joy, to being a place where we examine social condition. And in 1945, when they wrote and produced Carousel, took on the issue of domestic violence and mental abuse. Okay. Through Carousel, all that beautiful music and all the singing and dancing, but there it is in your face, what it looks like. And it's a look back from a person who participated in all this and having regret and looking back and wishing that they could have done something differently. They could have lived their life differently, but seeing the consequences of the choice they made and how they conducted themselves in a relationship. So Carousel, and it is a beautiful work, but it's very problematic. It's not often produced because of the theme, how the theme is handled, and because production-wise, it has a quality to it. There's a huge it's called Carousel, and there's a huge carousel that's central in the storytelling. That is a monster to try to reproduce on the stage. So, but it is beautiful. I hope that you take some time, if you don't know it, take some time to get to see it. You can see it sometimes on TCM and other places where musical theaters are shown films. Now, for colored girls who considered suicide when the rainbow's enough, Ntozake Shange started a revolution through this piece, feminist, womanist writing, dealing for real with the experiences of many women, not just Black women, but women, period. What happens to many of us in our journey as girls, as adolescents, as women, things that sometimes happen. But there it is in word and in portrayal for you to see. Now, this piece, I believe, with Eve Ensler and other women who have gone on to write pieces like Vagina Monologues and others, I believe Ntozake Shange gave us women the freedom to tell our truth, to speak our truth on the stage. And this became not only a Broadway production, and it was a hit, but it also has become a film. And like A Raisin in the Sun is often produced. We find where you can have a group of 9 women, Black women, at one place at the same time on a campus, in a city with a theater company, at some time for colored girls who considered Suicide When the Rainbow Is Enough is going to be produced. It does have a timeless quality to it, and the reason I say unfortunate is because the issues that it deals with are still prevalent. So yes, misogyny. Okay. Next, please. LGBTQ, Tony Kushner. There again, courage, courageousness, boldness in a time of fear about AIDS, about ignorance, about LGBTQ plus lifestyle. He takes it head on with Angels in America. A Gay Fantasia on National Themes is a 2-part play. So there's Perestroika, the second part. So Tony Kushner, again, like Ntozake Shange, opened the floodgate for people to now come on through and speak your truth, so that today we can have a Passing Strange, we can have a Take Me Out, and those other plays and musicals that share a journey, a story of LGBTQ plus lifestyle, of struggle, of life, period, okay? So Tony Kushner, again, is a hero in this movement of justice and social change through theater. Thank you. Let's move on. So let's take a look at some of these movements that freed Lorraine Hansberry and Tony Kushner and Ntozake Shange and Oscar Hammerstein and all to create the work they did for the times they lived in. So I want to start with the 1820s, all the way back then, with the African Theater Company, which was founded by William Henry Brown, which had the courage during the time when African Americans, not too long ago, were being persecuted. Well, actually, during the time of persecution, and being told not to read, not to carry yourself in a particular way in which you'll be not threatening to white people. And here, William Henry Brown is teaching Shakespeare to the African Theater Company, doing all Black performances of Macbeth. I can say it here because it's in my house and not in a theater. You know about that, right? Okay, anyway, so all Black productions, and being shut down and being protested because of the quality of work that is being produced. Leading the way for Ira Aldridge and Paul Robeson and all of those later men of color and women of color, BIPOC, who are sharing in the work of Shakespeare, the African Theater Company. In 1935 to 1939, it should be just WPA, sorry about that, but the Works, the Works Projects Act, the WPA under President Roosevelt, not Theodore Roosevelt, I did it again. Why can't I think of his name? Franklin Roosevelt in 1935. During the darkest, bleakest time of the Depression, had this brilliant idea for the government to fund projects to help rebuild the infrastructure and to fund the arts in America. So the Federal Theater Project came out of the WPA, and people like Arthur Miller and Elia Kazan and Orson Welles and Lillian Hellman and Mickey Grant and Vinette Carroll were involved in creating work that addressed the social issue for that time. It was in your face. With works like The Cradle Will Rock and Swing Mikado and the Living Newspaper Projects, where they literally ripped headlines and created plays that addressed current issues that were affecting the poorest of the poor in the United States. And out of this WPA, about 8.5 million Americans were put to work through this. And there was a Negro Federal Theater Project that came out of the WPA as well. And John Houseman and Orson Welles were kind of the project managers. And people like Harlem Renaissance writers, Arna Bontemps and William Du Bois, not W.E.B. Du Bois, but William Du Bois, and Vinette Carroll, and were a part of regional unions that were units that were across the United States. So there was a unit like in Peoria, Illinois, or out in Los Angeles, down in the southern region, and of course out east in Harlem, where the most well-known of the units was known as the Harlem Theater Project. And they produced original work that I believe, again, was a launching or planting of the seed for what became the Black theater movement that we'll discuss in a moment. So the WPA, Federal Theater Projects. In 1964, gay theater with one-act plays at Cafe Sino, one-act plays that dealt with the realities, some of it in a burlesque way, some of it in a very serious manner, but oftentimes, as oppressed people do, we use satire to share our stories. But in 1964, one-act plays were presented at Cafe Sino about the struggles, the realities of gay life. Following on the heels of that, El Teatro, Luis Valdez founded, I'm going to call it a theater of the streets or a theater of the fields, this movement where real life situations of the moment would be portrayed as people were working. So what I mean by that is there would be it kind of reminds you of the sketches that you might see on Saturday Night Live, but where something that really happened, an event that really happened to a migrant worker would be portrayed, but satire would be used to share the story. So there would be a person who would be assigned the role of the antagonist, there would be a protagonist, and they would be clearly delineated by the way they spoke, the way they carried themselves, so you knew who these persons were. And the actors would actually be the migrant workers themselves. So these migrant workers would all of a sudden stop working, perform one of what is called an acto. So it's like a mini performance, a mini act, an acto, performing, retelling an incident that happened, but telling it in a comical way. And it was used as a form of protest, laying down your farm tools to hear the truth. And then after hearing this truth, what does it do to you? It motivates you to fight for your rights. In fact, it was used as a tool to support Cesar Chavez's Migrant Farm Workers Union, the work that they were doing. So this is 1965 with the El Teatro. And this is happening in the Southwest and in California on the West Coast, where the migrant farm workers are contributing to the breadbasket, to the tables of America, okay, the United States. In 1969, there's the National Black Theater Movement, founded by Barbara Antier, and these are plays, are stories, are musicals by African Americans for African American performers to be shared with all, okay, a larger audience. But the National Black Theater is founded in New York. In the 1970s, there is the work of Augusto Boal with the Theater of the Oppressed, which uses dramatic techniques to bring light to systemic exploitation and oppression, within common situations, everyday situations. So he is using theater techniques to empower people, to help them to see what's happening, to recognize oppression and systemic oppression when you see it, call it out, and become a part of changing the oppression, overcoming the oppression by gaining the tools you need to be strong, to be able to speak for yourself, to have the courage to address in a public format what you are experiencing. Okay, so they're again working with everyday people, and oftentimes the poorest of the poor, the oppressed. And this movement was started in Brazil, but now is worldwide, because we know systemic oppression is a worldwide issue. Okay. In the 1970s, Carol Churchill starts the feminist theater movement. And there again, for colored girls and all of those works of that time, through the feminist theater movement, women are encouraged to tell our truth, to tell the truth, and to use the tools of theater, of writing, of song, of dance, of public presentation, connecting with the community, and sharing the truth. Carol Churchill. Next slide, please. So what's happening today? How are contemporary theater practitioners answering the call and addressing what Toni Morrison described as our time, the time? Well, let's start with Black Lives Matter. We have been we're all aware. We watch the news, we listen to NPR, we listen to Milwaukee Public Radio, Wisconsin Public Radio, we listen to UWM. We know what's happening. So as practitioners, how do we respond? It's a form of like newspaper theater, where we're taking the headlines from today and sharing them I'm not gonna say in real time, but certainly within a very short period of time. This is a type of work that's being done by Anna Devere Smith with Twilight Los Angeles, which she actually wrote in 1992 by collecting the interviews of people who experienced, after Rodney King, the upheaval, the social, I'm not going to say unrest, it was a response to the pain. So she created this work in which a one-person show where she becomes every person that was interviewed, no matter their ethnicity, no matter how they identify by gender, she portrays all of them in this one-person show, and it is outstanding. You can watch it, I think, through UWM, through our library system. You are able to access Twilight Los Angeles. And then Dale Orlando Smith, who both of these women, by the way, I've had the opportunity to meet here in Milwaukee through theater experiences as an audience member. And in the case of Anna Devere Smith, I had the privilege of introducing her for a special event that was held not long, a few years ago. And then Dale Orlando Smith, Until the Flood, Michael Brown, the Michael Brown tragedy. And there again, collecting the interviews of people who were there, who were affected by, and then in a one-person show, Dale Orlando Smith becomes all of these characters. This production was shown here at the Milwaukee Repertory Theater, and there were many opportunities for people in the community to interface and to talk about, to process what they experienced with Until the Flood. Both of these pieces are powerful and have ignited a movement of in the moment addressing through theater, using transcripts, the stories, the truths of people who have experienced systemic oppression, racism. Inclusion in the Heights, Lin-Manuel Miranda and Carrera Alegria Hudes. You know, this idea of celebrating that through when people, BIPOC people tell their own story, they tell their truth in the way that is authentic for them, okay? And I love what he had to say about the fact you're not going to see a gun, you're not going to see a knife, but you're going to hear truth and see a beautiful story. I know right now there's some controversy about the fact, well, didn't have enough darker hued people who are Latinx. But I'm going to tell you, I'm just going to say, Lin-Manuel Miranda, thank you. Keep telling the stories, keep writing, keep being. And we are all on a journey. No one is perfect. And I thank you. And thank you to Narissa Fasthorse, who wrote Thanksgiving Play. There again, using satire, and yes, it's about Thanksgiving and attitudes of people about Indigenous brothers and sisters, the original inhabitants of the land, the people that I called off earlier today as I started our session. So honoring her heritage, Narissa Fasthorse. And I want to add Milwaukee's own Ty Defoe. Check them out. Ty Defoe, check them out. A collaborator of Narissa Fasthorse and is doing marvelous work on Broadway and with First Stage right here in Milwaukee. Ty Defoe. Gender equity, The Wolves. This play produced in 2017 is, I'm going to say, a sneak peek into the locker room of women athletes, girls in high school who are soccer players. And as they discuss in a real way, now I didn't play sports, but I've been in the dressing room, and I know the type of conversation that takes place. Well, this is a sneak peek into a conversation of these teen athletes and what they have to say about what's happening politically and personally. I believe First Stage is producing The Wolves. If you haven't seen it, check out their website, buy a ticket, support them, and see the truth. LGBTQ, Passing Strange. And notice I'm just giving a sprinkling. This is just a sample because we don't have a lot of time, but I just want to give you a sampling, some places to jump off, okay? LGBTQ, Passing Strange by Stu and Heidi Rodewald. I want you to know this musical, this young Black queer, what this person goes through as a child, adolescent, just trying to thrive and exist in a world where it's not necessarily understood, accepted, loved, okay? Passing Strange. All right. So these are some of the ways theater are attempting, through contemporary artists, are attempting to address the issues of the time. So how do Milwaukee theater practitioners respond to the times? Well, in 1968, the People's Theater was founded by Gerald Wallace. Around the same time that Barbara Ann Teer is establishing the National Black Theater, Milwaukee has the People's Theater, in which there again, the words, the stories, the expressions, the culture of African Americans living in Milwaukee are shared. Gerald Wallace was a great storyteller. And using his theater background as storytelling encouraged other young people to learn the craft, to study the craft, and then to tell their own truths on stage. In 1993, Renaissance Theater Works responds to feminist and womanist theater with works by women, for women, told through women, and it's shared with the greater Milwaukee and Midwestern. You might as well say to share through the Midwest. And one of our own colleagues, Francine McMillian, on the faculty at UWM Theater, Peck School of the Arts Theater Program, theater department acting program, is one of the founders of Renaissance Theater Works. In 2005, the Milwaukee Gay Arts Center is founded and becomes that place for plays, spoken word, music, cultural expression from the gay experience in America. And it closed in 2015, but I believe its legacy lives on through the artists who were nurtured at the Milwaukee Gay Arts Center. As a part of the shutdown of theaters and here in Milwaukee and across really around the world, but especially here in Milwaukee, and still needing an opportunity to express what was going on with Black Lives Matter and other experiences politically. The Milwaukee Black Theater Festival was founded in August 2020, and I'm so grateful to be one of those founders, along with DeMonte Henning, Malkia Stampley, and Brent Hazelton. So the Milwaukee Black Theater Festival, which I'm saying to present because yes, there will be a second one and an announcement coming out this weekend about the Milwaukee Black Theater Festival. So there again, theater by African Americans, created to express our experience, but shared with the greater community, okay? And then here at UWM Peck School of the Arts, Alvaro Sarrios, my colleague and a mentor of mine, created this course, Theater 150, Theater in Multicultural America. Is real, folks. Oh, this course is, if you can't take it in person, take it online, audit, whatever you got to do, you need to be in this course. But don't come if you're shy, because you're going to have to examine your own background and your attitudes while you learn about multicultural theater in America. In 2021, there's a new performance added to the Peck School of the Arts theater season, and it's Diverse Voices. I will not announce what the play is. I'll wait for the big announcement from the marketing, but there again, responding to the time, as Toni Morrison called us to do, with diverse voices. And then how do we support the young BIPOC student who desires to be involved in theater, the study, and the craft of theater, but sometimes because parents don't necessarily think that's a practical way to spend your money on your education, studying theater, they have to do so much of it on their own, raising their funds and working so that they can study their passion, that which feeds their soul, as I like to say. There is the Adolphus Ambrose Ward Scholarship that was initiated. Still in the process of raising money, but it is a 4-year scholarship, $1,000 a year, renewable up to 4 years, for BIPOC students who just need a little help. They're scholars, talented, but we want to ensure that they're able to study, not just being on the stage, but especially behind the stage, the artisans, the producers, the craftspersons. So this is how Milwaukee theater practitioners respond to the times. Can we move forward, Abby? So I've been talking, and this is an opportunity for you now to raise questions. And I may have an answer, and if I don't, I'm going to see if I can point you in the right direction.
Thank you so much, Sheri. We are awaiting questions, but we have, I think, a former colleague of yours, Judy B. from Cali, says, "Hi, this is Judy B. from Cali. Recall that we were involved in a play called Bongo Baker, and could you talk a little bit about that play, about the oppression in Black vaudeville?"
Oh my goodness, yes. Well, if you think about vaudeville and African Americans being able to speak their truth, to tell their truth, but having to tell their truth under the shadow of blackface, because for African Americans to step on the stage, I'm going to say with dignity, with command, with knowledge, with all of that talent that they bring, was looked at as a threat by white Americans, by white society. And so they had to, I'm going to say, suffer the indignity of having to change their speech. That character that we see, the Jim Crow characters and others, are actually the creation of white Americans as a means to denigrate African Americans through the stereotype. And with vaudeville, there was not only the indignity of having to perform in blackface, but the indignity of not having a place while you're traveling, because they were traveling on what was called the Chitlin circuit, the Theater Owners Booking Association, which was called Tough on Black Asses. that's how that was the acronym that was used. So they had to suffer the indignity of not having a proper place for a dressing room, a place to eat, a place to stay, dangers on the road as they traveled. All of this was placed upon the shoulders of the African American talented entertainers, traveling oftentimes through the South, through hostile, and North too. Let's be honest. The northern route as well was treacherous, but needing to perform in blackface, which meant taking cork, which was burned and placed all over the face, the neck, any part of the skin that was exposed, and oftentimes then wearing white gloves, portraying these stereotypic characters that represented the mammy character, the field person. I'll just say that there were archetypes that were represented in this sort of vaudeville entertainment. So Judy, you want to add anything to it? And Judy Beatty, by the way, is not only an alum of UWM, but she was honored as an alum of the decade for her work as a composer, arranger, writer, scholar, and pianist. Hi, Judy.
That's incredible. Yes, we've had some, Sheri, we've had some really informative and informed people in the chat, and I've grabbed those questions for you, and we can make sure that you have emails of everyone, because we've had some really incredible conversations in the chat. And I just wanted to say, as you've been talking and you mentioned August Wilson, and I have to admit, I've only become familiar with his work recently through movies such as Fences, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, and then also thinking to the recent movie production of One Night in Miami, which was an incredible play. How can people who are only finding out about things via movies get a little bit ahead of the curve, and where can we go to kind of explore this incredible rich play history?
You know what? I'm going to go to the place that August Wilson went, and that most of us who write go, and that is to the library. Your Milwaukee Public Library, your public library, wherever you are, if you go to that section that identifies African-American playwrights, plays, you will find a treasure trove of work. And all you have to do is just reach up and take one and start your journey. And I can tell you with August Wilson, if you start with him, there are 10 plays, 10 that you can go through in chronological order, not the order which he wrote them, but the order in which they stand from decade to decade, from 1900 to 1910 to, I think it goes all the way to 2000 before he died, the last play. So there you have a great place to start. And I mentioned Lorraine Hansberry, before she died, she wrote 2 other pieces. Well, actually her husband finished one of them for her. And then as I said, really it's the library. And through the Golda Meir Library, for those of us that are on campus or have access, yes, they're there for you. To enjoy, to read, to be inspired by, to challenge you. Okay, so the library, yes. And if you are prone to purchase, of course, you can purchase them on Amazon as well. But I tell you, but really, start at your library.
I love that. I love that, and I will do that this summer. Thank you so much, Professor Pannell. This has been such an engaging and fascinating talk. We did want to mention that Skylight Music Theater is presenting the musical and theatrical journey Forgotten Voices, written by Sheri Williams Pannell, with music directed by Christy Childs Twilley. And the production streams on Juneteenth Day, June 19th through July 18th. Visit Skylight Theater's website for more information. I grabbed that information from your email signature there, Sheri, so we can promote this for you. And I look forward to checking it out. We want to thank Sheri for her presentation today. And we want to thank you, our alumni community, for all your support with the Mobile Master Chat series this year. Look for more information soon on our fall series. Thank you so much, Sheri.
You're welcome. And thank you for the invitation.
Thanks, bye.